Hey, welcome back to the conclusion of our study called Where Are the Fear and Honor? We're talking about Malachi 1 from starting at verse 6 to the end. Talking about worship and the quality of worship, what worship is about. That's what this whole section is, that the priests and the people were offering worship that didn't cost them anything. It was wearisome to them, burdensome to them, and so they made it into something that they wanted to do. Actually having to give up an animal that was very costly to them. They didn't want to do that, so they just gave whatever they could find. Things that were, killed by violence, or the lame ones that wouldn't survive, ones that wouldn't grow into something that would be profitable. So they gave that, and they gave that away. And, it doesn't make any sense to call that worship. It's not worship then. And we do that same thing today. I mean, we offer the roadkill worship. It's convenient. It doesn't cost me anything. It makes me feel good. It's all about me. And then we give that and say, well, there, God, take it. I worshiped you, so you need to do what you promised to do. And he never promised to do anything if we gave him the trash worship. He defined worship. He gave us rules and commands, how we do it, what should be going on in our hearts when we do it. It should be an expression of all of who we are. Jesus said to deny thyself, pick up your cross and follow me, to deny yourself and die daily, to do that every day, which includes when you go into Sunday worship. It should be a denial of thyself, a giving that should cost you. It should be expensive. This would be if you're giving a sacrifice of praise, that should be expensive to you. If it's easy, if it's like going to the movies, if it's like sitting down and watching your favorite TV show, then that's not costly. If sitting down across from the table and if communicating with your church is easy and it's always doesn't cost you anything, because you have conversations that are just about the weather, about your favorite sports team, it's not a costly conversation, then it's not real fellowship. It's not real worship in fellowship. It didn't cost you anything. So it has to be costly in order to be worship. That's what he's saying. I made it costly. I defined it as costly, but you treat it as garbage. So at our church, we spent about 30 odd weeks talking about worship in our adult Sunday school class. And why? Because God cares about how we worship him. That's why. That's why we spent the time doing that, because God cares. If you can't read this and then you just throw this off to the side, then you don't get it. If we profess to be his worshipers, we need to listen to him and how he has prescribed and described worship. If we fail to follow his commands, we will find ourselves cursed as well. I think that is clear. I mean, you can't mock God. How many times? I mean, it's a mockery of God if you bring a lame animal. If you bring your worship that's all about you, that's a mockery of him. Because you're saying, well, I'm going to worship service. This is a worship service. You're called to worship God. And you come in and worship yourself, that's a mockery of God. God doesn't allow that to happen. You will have to pay the consequences. If you're a Christian, then there will be consequences for it. Some of it is just that you've never truly worshiped, and you are a fool for your whole life. That's part of the consequence. But if you're not a Christian, then you're coming in thinking you're worshiping, which unfortunately a lot of churches have allowed people to do. Then they've been fooled into hell then. So, but this is not just an Old Testament idea. As we heard Paul state the same thing about those who are in the church. God loves us and he has told us how to worship him. He does not want us to be cursed, but his glory and his name must be made great. That's not an optional. That has to happen. A sacrifice of praise must cost us. It is a costly thing to worship God. If it doesn't cost you anything, if it feels always good, if it's just like, man, I gave up my hour to him to worship, and I'll never have that hour back. If you're thinking that, then you're giving the roadkill sacrifice. It's just garbage. It's not really a cost. An hour out of your day, every week, hour and a half, that's it. Come on. We dare not offer him our lame, tainted, our cheap worship. May we offer our whole selves on the altar of praise. That means everything has to die. Everything about you has to be committed to him. If you don't, then what's the point? It might cost us everything, though, right? It might cost you everything to worship God. But that's what God is due. That's what he's called for. But if you do that, if you lose your life in the worship of God, that's when you truly find him. You have to do it. That's the paradox that Jesus mentioned. If you lose your life, you give your life up for me, then you will finally find that life. And you realize that you never really had life before that. So that's our worship. Well, could be. That is our study for this week. And we need to take this to heart. He's not done with the priests either, because in chapter 2, God's going to go after the priests again. And we need to listen to that as well. So come back next time. We'll take a look at, start looking at chapter 2 of Malachi.